What up, ladies and gentlemen? The Film Tangents podcast has returned to the airwaves.
We returned to your house.
Yeah,
If you're listening to this, if you look behind you at any moment, if you do it fast enough, you'll see
yeah,
us.
yeah. You'll see two dudes, two incredibly handsome men just standing there.
But if
Yeah,
you do it too slowly, you'll see two old ladies.
yeah, yeah, yeah. One of those optical illusion
Yeah,
things,
or you'll see.
like the fucking yellow and blue dress. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember
Oh,
that
dude, I
thing?
remember that. That came and went. But I remember how that that was like a huge thing.
That was
I don't
huge.
remember. I don't remember like what that said about you. I think it just said that like if you saw it and it was gold, I think it just meant that you really liked My Little Pony. And if you
So,
saw it and it was blue, I think it just meant that you were like really into like professional wrestling.
oh yeah. What are you trying to say with that, Edward? I wonder. Let me. I gotta ponder that a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, we're back. We're back, ladies and
everybody.
gentlemen. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you get notified of all our new episodes. But yeah, it's time for the show, ladies and gentlemen. If you're at work, time to hook up that mouse jiggler and prop your feet up because yeah, we're the show is on.
We're back.
But
Everybody.
Edward, what's your request for the audience this week for the comments?
Oh, that's right. Everybody, this is a very particular episode. In regards to, I guess, like the movie that we're going to be talking about later on today. But there's also a topic that Jake and I are also about to get into, which I want to hear you guys' take on it. And if you listen through to our conversation, you'll get more of the meat of the idea here. But the specific question for you guys this week is: at what age, at what age is it that you guys think that people get weird?
Yeah.
Like at what
Yeah.
age do people get just like outlandish, in a permanent way? And this is literally the topic that we're about to talk about now. So if you listening to this, you'll get a little bit of what we mean by that. But
I don't know if I have a specific age in mind that people. I guess so. To clarify, what you mean by this is
Yeah.
when just people become like just kind of abrasive
exactly
in
when
public.
specifically too, like when people get certain traits about their personality that are just like that become the standout traits about their
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah, because I feel like traits as you get older, your traits become you almost delve into self-parody in a way. You're kind of like, it's kind of funny because like in the world of television, for instance, right? If a TV show goes on too long, what ends up happening is
They become
that, like,
caricatures.
The
Yeah.
Simpsons, right? Yeah, like the characters delve into self-parody,
Right.
and life is almost like a TV show that's too long.
Exactly.
Where it's like, I think the same thing kind of happens. Where
Yeah.
you're just like, where like you hit a certain age and you're like, oh boy, here comes freaking Mr. Jones. He's gonna say this thing when he walks in. Yeah, I mean, you can like where you can finish people's sentences and shit. Something happens.
Something happened.
Well, so I know that around our age is like when you start to have, I think it's decreased neuroplasticity, where you're less. It becomes increasingly harder to change who you are, even at our age. But yeah, I guess those, because I know that over time, like certain, I don't know if, well, I won't say I know this, but I believe, I guess over time, because your brain is always just forming pathways, from what I understand about
Right.
how the brain works. Your brain is forming pathways. I know that, like, for instance, when you go into like deep focus on something, like if you want to get good at something, you want to go into periods, whether it's like 25 minutes at a time, where you're just solely focused on that one thing.
Mhm.
Because what happens is these calluses or these callus type things start to form around the neural pathways that allow the signals to fire quicker,
Mm.
which is kind of what's happening when you practice something, for instance. Like if you practice something a lot, you'll eventually get not only better at it, but oftentimes you'll get quicker at it.
Right.
So I don't know if that's something that happens in old age, something similar, but with like bad traits as well, where like, you're 60 years old and you start talking to people about like, how the gas prices are going to go up when Biden's in office.
Right. So so essentially the thing, it's interesting because it kind of goes hand in hand, right? Like I guess like you spend so much time doing something that eventually, it's like this is all that you are, and then it just embodies everything you do.
Yeah.
The thing that prompted this thought process within me is I recently rewatched, by recently I mean like a few days ago. I rewatched like the John Mulaney special. I think it's like Kid Gorgeous or The Combat Kid, like one of the two kid title ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in it, he has a bit where he says, um, he's like, I've gotten to the age where I'm gross. It was like I'm only 35, but I'm always sweaty. It was like my butt is always like wet. It's like I'm always burping. So I was like, huh. And that kind of triggered in my head like the idea of like, oh, people get to ages where they reach like a stage in life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Cause
I think the answer I think the answer here is either 38 or 40. I don't want to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's like yeah, there's something gradual going on too, but yeah, man, I'm trying to think because I had kind of more of like a point to make about it. I kind of lost it,
Yeah,
but yeah, people just get set in their ways, man.
they do.
Like, because there's definitely something about like just older people too. I pray, dude, I don't become like this. Like today, I was leaving the gym at lunch hour, and I went across the road to a gas station to grab a protein drink.
Mhm.
And I'm in line, and the line's really long. And
Yeah, you told me you had a story about this whole topic.
well, this isn't no. So I have another one from yesterday, but
Okay.
this one's like shorter. This one's not like a great story or anything, but this kind of helps me make my point. Like we're in the line, and it's really freaking long, and the clerks are like, just kind of bumbling. This is not a good gas station, but it's right across from the gym that I go to.
Mhm.
I mean, I've had clerks there take like, minutes on end just to ring up one item, just that kind of thing, right? And so we're in line, and the clerks are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and not being able to count money and just stuff like that. And it's
Right.
like, whatever, man. I mean, it's fine. I could stand here, and there's like maybe like 55-year-old woman in front of me.
Mhm.
And she kind of like looks back at me and like smirks and is just kind of like,
Like
this line
complaining
is
about it.
yeah, she's like, this line is just terrible, or this line. And I'm just like, yeah, long, and I'm all ready, dude. I'm just kind of like, uh, don't talk to me. I don't know, man. There's something like I'm a friendly person too, but there's like certain times, whether it's like politics
Uh,
or just like, how bad the customer service is in a place. There's just certain topics where if you try to strike up a conversation with me about it, I'm just kind of like, oh, and she's just like, I don't know what happened to customer service?
she
And I'm
said
just
that to
like,
you?
yeah, and I'm just like, oh, lady, who gives a shit? We're gonna be out of here in 2 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I
I
don't
got
know. I
somewhere
think,
to go. I got places to
yeah,
be.
yeah, there's something with there's something as you get older. I think maybe you just have like less of a tolerance for things,
Maybe you
and
do.
you want to share it with other people.
Yeah.
Because maybe when I'm that age, and because I think life, like it's kind of like that movie Dragged Across Concrete. I think life drags you across concrete a little bit, where you're
Mhm.
just kind of like, this is the 500th line I've ever stood in, and it's just like I think life probably just wears on you
Yeah.
as you get older. Maybe, I don't know, because I mean there's certain aspects of life already as a 26-year-old now that have that wear on me, one of which being people who start like telling me stories and I don't know them from Adam, which
Yeah.
is what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's an interesting question, sir. But yeah, I think that's what it is, man. I think life just starts to bear down on you as you get older.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It reminds me of that, like, what is the name of this guy? I forget this author's name often, but Foster Wallace. I forget his first name because he had this, like, this is water, like, thing about how people, you just kind of lose cognitive, like, this, like, cognitive ability to discern, that the world is broader than just your experience. And
Yeah,
I feel like that kind of lends into this conversation, because I think that's what happens with people when they approach a person, with
yeah,
their own set of things in their head. Like, this is how the world is. This is what I believe. Like, this is just what's in my brain, and
right.
I am going to take that into every interaction,
Yeah,
regardless of whatever the other person might be, like, living or existing. Like, my experience is dictating existence as a whole,
right.
which is
Well, yeah,
exhausting.
that's a great point. I'm very interested in what you're saying, actually, because that's a really good point. Because when you think about it, because if you're like a 60-year-old, you're like, well, it's my 60 years of experience
Right.
versus the 5 seconds that you've existed in my universe, you know.
Exactly. Yeah,
so I'm
exactly.
gonna, so I'm gonna bring my bullshit to the to the forefront of this conversation. Damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, because as you, but it should be the opposite. As you get older, um I feel like that's kind of the key, maybe one of the keys to life, where it's like as you get older, it should be the opposite, where your horizons broaden
Right.
and you think more about um
People's horizons narrow,
other
dude.
people's experiences and
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like people's horizons narrow. But again, yeah, it's like I think I don't know. It's like life just I don't know, but a lot of people, I think life just kind of puts them through the ringer,
Yeah.
and we're young, and it's like there's a lot of hope for the future,
Yeah.
but the sad reality is like most people are just gonna, there's that old quote, like most people live lives of quiet desperation, and it's like, yeah, I mean that is just kind of the reality of like of life, where it's like, most people are just kind of gonna work for the man and work a 9 to 5, and yeah, maybe they'll have like a couple trips here and there, and
Right.
they go on a week long vacation, and a lot of times they don't even really enjoy it because it's
Right.
like a lot of it is just a hassle
It
to
is a
like
hassle.
catch the plane and
Yeah.
get to the hotel and figure out where we're going and where we're going to eat, and
Right.
oh, on this day it was raining, and and then by the time you get back it's
You're
like, what did I
exhausted.
even really get from that trip? Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
You're
tired.
tired.
Yeah, and it's just like I think that is unfortunately just kind of the path for most people. And then after, again, like yeah, it's just kind of this thing of I think um after 40 years probably of
Probably.
working, what'd you say?
It's a probably.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah.
guesstimation. It's like at some point in your 40s.
Right. Well, I'm talking yeah, I'm kind of thinking in terms of like by the time you're 60. So for like
Yeah.
40 years from the time you're
Oh, I see. I
20,
see. I see.
22, when you kind of go out into the world.
Yeah.
Sorry, I bumped my mic there. Yeah, I feel like by the time you kind of get into like middle age, it's probably like, well, I've been spending all this time, 40 hours a week or more for 4 decades now,
Right.
working towards working for someone else,
Right.
and pleasing someone else and helping someone else bring their vision to life. Now I want to tell my stories, damn it, I
Right.
matter. I don't know, maybe that's it. And maybe that's why, when you go outside and sometimes you say hello to someone, they end up telling you a 20-minute story, and then you're like the old George Carlin bit that we all know and love, where, where it's his people are boring bit.
Yeah. It's fascinating because that also is what shapes my, like, my weariness of, like, sometimes, grandpas and grandmas. I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
gonna get roped into something. Like,
right.
I have neighbors that are, like, a little bit older,
Oh
And
man.
often I'm just like, I don't want to have this conversation.
Oh
I
dude.
don't want to have this interaction.
Well, this is a great segue
To
into
your
what
story.
happened yesterday. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, dude, exactly what you're saying happened to me yesterday. Where down the road there's like a trail that goes through the woods, and it goes along the lake. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's gonna be the best trail. It's the best trail. It's beautiful. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yesterday was a nice day. I
Mhm.
finished up work. I want to do some reading on my Kindle. I'm reading book 3 of the Dark Tower series by Stephen
Nice.
King. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get some reading done. Um, I don't even want to say it like that because I enjoy it.
Mhm.
I'm going to go sit by the lake and read because it's beautiful outside.
Right.
Okay. So, I grab my camping chair, go down to the lake, walk the trail. I find a nice spot to put my chair up. I sit down, dude, 2 minutes. I hear the crunching of leaves nearby. And I look, and there's like this old lady, and she's like watering plants in the
Like
woods.
it's just randomly.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of like, hello, and she says hello, and I kind of start to look away, and then I look back at her, and she's still looking at me, and in my mind, I'm like, what's the deal? Because I mean,
Mhm.
it's a public trail. I'm like, but she's looking at me like, just I know she keeps staring at me, and I'm just kind of like,
Mhm.
what's up? In my head, and she's like, I'm growing raspberries in the woods, I'm watering them, and I'm just like, oh, here we go. And I'm like, oh yeah, crunch, crunch, crunch. She starts walking toward me, and I'm like, dude,
Oh, God.
20 minutes.
You had this interaction.
Oh my god, dude, she just starts talking. And keep in mind, dude, at this point in time, this lady doesn't know where I'm from, what I do for work, who, she knows my first name,
Right.
doesn't even, doesn't ask me a single question. And that's the other really annoying thing about people like these types of people. They never ask you about yourself.
No,
They're
it's just
just like, this
yapping.
is my, yeah, it's my time
Uh,
to dump. Like, this is my time to dump.
they feel great after the fact. Like, I got so much
Oh,
off I got so much off of me. Talk to
I
that
know,
guy.
man. I know, and maybe it's just kind of what. Who knows? I mean, it's like maybe it's like what loneliness does to people. But
Yeah.
the point of the story is not to pick on this woman, but I'm also trying to be honest. Like the honest truth, the God's honest truth is like, whenever these things happen, you're just kind of like, I just want to fucking do what I was doing. You know what I mean? But man, I mean, just talking about the raspberries she's growing in the woods, talking about she's like, oh, the Kentucky Derby's on Saturday, and I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm going to a party. Oh, do I have the best Kentucky Derby story ever? And
And so
I'm
she
just like,
told you that story.
oh. So the story, and here's another thing too, man. I feel like certain stories do not warrant the length in which they are told.
Right.
I mean, like, I don't know, maybe that applies to this story currently, but like, but I'm trying to make points too. You know what I mean? But it's like certain stories. I mean, she's like, the story amounted to, you know, when she was younger, in 80s or 90s, she went to the Kentucky Derby. There was a really famous sports commentator there, and his toupee blew off. It took me 10 seconds to tell you that. The story was like 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And it was just this whole build up, who she was dating at the time, where they went for lunch, like all this stuff. And I'm just like, God damn it, I just want to read. Fuck. So yeah, after like 20, 25 minutes, she walks away, and I'm like, okay, dude, 10 minutes later, she's back.
Really?
She's back. She's back
For
10
what?
minutes later, too. Walking through the woods, man. She's back, dude. Probably another 10, 15 minutes of time. So, dude, I'm down by the lake for an hour. I probably read for like 20
Oh
minutes.
God. Are you gonna do it again?
Um, well,
Are you
I'm
gonna
not going to
risk it?
pick that. I'm going to go to a different spot next time.
He's gonna be looking for you, dude. So they'll be like, "Where is that young man
Yeah.
that I
But
can
here's the
talk
thing.
to?"
And the funny thing is, like, I feel like our generation is very, there. which, you and I were talking about this earlier this week. Like our generation has, with social media and everything, has some serious like social skills issues.
Right.
I've noticed, like, the more time goes by and the more I'm out in the world, I'm like, man, people really, like, not all the time, not everybody, but
No.
there's like there is like some sort of deficit in terms of social skills with our generation. So I don't want to be standoffish with people or go down that road. I like saying hi to people. How are you? Oh yeah, like I just moved in, this and that. But
Mhm.
man, like let's keep it to like 2 minutes. Like if you're, you know what I mean. Especially if there's like in situations like that though, it's like, oh my god, I'm in the chair, I'm reading, like, so do you see the book in my hand?
Yeah, I think that was her issue because it's like, man, and again, maybe it's also a generational divide with that because it's like, there's I'm doing something here, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a book in my hand. It's not like I'm sitting there, even if I was sitting there with a fishing pole, it's like, well, I can talk and fish at the same time, but I can't talk and read at the same time.
right. But even then, like,
So it's
even then,
like,
it's like it's not an invitation.
yeah,
It's pretty
right.
funny though, because
Right.
it's like, oh, this is an invitation for me to hang out and speak to this guy.
Yeah. It's not the worst interaction I've ever had in the woods
Oh, I
though.
know that. I know what the worst one is.
Should I tell that one?
That's up to you. Maybe next time. Let's water on that thought about whether
Yeah.
whether or not we share that.
Yeah, it's too many woods stories in one. Oh yeah. All right, I'll tell it. Remind me. I'll tell it next week.
Yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious. Oh
Just to
boy.
give people a little
A hint.
appetizer. It's like probably the single most awkward, uncomfortable, just unbearably cringe interaction I think I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
It was like a few years ago,
I
and it
thought about
happened in a forest.
I thought about that recently because I was walking in the woods and I thought about that. I was like, oh, this happened.
Oh God, dude. I'll tell it next time.
My name is
Yeah.
Mr. Jollibee.
Oh God. Oh Jesus Christ.
Uh,
Um.
Something that I wanted to ask you, if you had been up to date, this has been like my number one thing that I've had in my mind that I wanted to talk to you about. Have you been paying any attention to the beef, the rap beef?
No, dude. I know what you're talking about. Kendrick and Drake
Yeah.
beef.
You've been completely
Well,
disconnected?
I'm pretty disconnected. I haven't heard either of the tracks because
Man.
they're two rappers I don't give a shit about. Like I
Yeah.
don't, dude. Here's the thing. I thought about this. I have to say this,
Yeah.
dude. There's a quadrant of rappers.
A quadrant.
There's a quadrant, a square of rappers that when people mention them, I'm like, I shut off. I'm just like, I give a shit. But
Yeah.
they're like the biggest rappers in the world.
Kendrick?
Kanye West,
Yeah.
Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Drake.
Yeah.
So when you tell me that there's like this three-way beef between J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, and Drake, I'm like, dude, that's 3/4 of a quadrant that I don't give a shit about.
I've been
Like,
into
I
it,
don't.
dude. I've been excited, man. I've been like into it. Like,
Well, give us your take on it.
well, because for those not in the know, like Jake, for those
Yeah.
members of our audience who are not, hip hop fans or who are hip hop fans like Jake is, but are not, paying any attention to this. This is what's going on. Drake and Kendrick have had beef for a long time, time. And you can watch the videos. Trap Lore Ross or whoever. These guys, they all have. A bunch of guys have videos like on just like the detailed history of the beef. There's like a specific guy on YouTube though that he's all about the beefs. But if you want to know, just Google like Drake, Kendrick beef history or something, and you'll get a video. But basically, these guys have had a history like beef for a while, and it all basically comes down to Kendrick is perceived by the culture at large to be like the great hip hop guy at the moment. Like he's perceived to be like like the best guy, like the successor to like Tupac or something, like the best guy. because it always feels like somebody wears that crown for a little bit. There's always somebody who wears the crown of like, this is the best artist that we have. Jay-Z had it for a little bit, Kanye had it for a little bit, and then Kendrick has had it for a while.
Yeah.
Like Kendrick has technically had like the crown of this is the best hip hop guy since Good Kid, Mad City.
Yeah.
And then
for like a split second, it was looking like it was going to go to Chance the Rapper.
Oh,
and then
Chance!
That just,
oh, dude, and I have a topic about that.
like when Coloring Book came out, it was starting. Chance, I've never liked Chance the Rapper at all.
Yeah.
I was when he, not that I don't, I don't want anybody to fall off or like their career to go bad or anything.
Yeah.
I wish him the best as a person, but they're just as a listener, as a listener and not as a human being, but just as a listener, I was really kind of like relieved when he sort of fell off, because it was just like, okay, thank God. Like, I don't have to hear people talking about how great Chance supposedly is when he sucks.
Ooh, that big day. The big day was the biggest day for Chance. That was the name of the album that he fell out of. But
but again, as a human being, I don't want anybody to fall off or their career to go bad. But
and I want to talk about him. I actually have like a topic on him, like on my notes. But alas, this is what happened. Everything, like I said, everything happened. Good Kid, Mad City came out. I remember I think it was 2013, 2014, Macklemore and Ryan Lewis won Best Rap Album for The Heist, which was insanely controversial, because it was one of those moments in hip hop history where it's like, you had Drake, you had Kanye, you had Kendrick, Kanye had Isus, Drake had, Nothing Was the Same. Kendrick had Good Kid, Mad City, so you had like big names. Each one of those guys put out a good album, Yeezus and Good Kid, Mad City are great, and Nothing Was the Same is good, So it's like all these guys had good albums out, and they gave it to The Heist by Macklemore. It was humongous. It was a humongous fucking like baffling thing that happened. And
that's insane.
So much so that when Macklemore received the award, he was apologetic. And after the fact, he tweeted a huge apology to Kendrick. Like the apology was dedicated solely to Kendrick, being like, I am sorry, you deserve this award, And ever since that happened, Kendrick and Drake have had beef. Because Drake then, I think Drake like tweeted being like, all of us deserve an apology, and he was like salty in interviews being like, all of us should have been apologized to. Basically, Drake refused the narrative that Kendrick was better than him, even though that Kendrick cemented it with To Pimp a Butterfly that went on to win everything. And then he double cemented it with Damn that won him a Pulitzer Prize. So it's like, the guy just distanced himself from him so far, And so we've arrived here, with sneak disses and pot shots throughout the years between these two guys. And Kendrick was the one who took it there because, I listened to the track, which I like. Like, I like the Metro Booming Future thing. Because this is a beef involving everybody.
Oh, that's a great song.
Like that
3-6 Mafia. Yeah. That's a 3-6 Mafia sample off of Mystic Styles.
Yeah, I think Kanye had sampled that, right?
I don't know. I don't know of the Kanye sample, but it's the song. It's the song "Gotta Touch 'Em" off of Mystic Styles.
Yeah, no, and he flipped the same sample Kanye flipped for that the game song that he did.
Oh yeah, like, that's a very
that one.
Yeah, that's a commonly used sample in rap as well.
Yeah, so we skip to the present, right? And basically all of these guys united, and by all of these guys I mean Metro Booming, who's had beef with Drake for like a year. Future, surprisingly, doing a heel turn. Or a heel turn for Drake's narrative, but maybe like a babyface turn in the larger narrative. Because he did this collab album with Metro Booming called We Don't Like You or We Don't Trust You. Yeah. And it was all about beefing with Drake. Like the whole album was just sneak disses, direct disses from Future, everybody who's a feature in that fucking album was basically dissing at Drake. The Weeknd, and then they released like a second album, like a We Still Don't Trust You. And in that one, they got fucking A$AP Rocky. They just were bringing people out of the woods. Like anybody who would come in and diss him. Um,
I didn't know Future and Drake were on bad
no, they're
terms
on bad
now.
terms. They're not friends anymore.
I did not know that.
No, this dude, the whole "We Don't Trust You" thing is just about Drake. They're not friends anymore. Rick Ross came out of the woodwork and dissed Drake. Like
Wow.
everybody's been dissing this guy. Let me see. Travis Scott is featured. Anybody who's featured in this album was basically just throwing stones at Drake. The Weeknd,
Wow.
Travis Scott, what is it? Kendrick Lamar. Travis Scott's on 2 songs, and then Rick Ross is featured in a song called "Everyday Hustle." So it's like all of these guys were basically they all united. They all united their powers, and they were just like, let's take this guy down.
That's crazy.
Because apparently it's something along the lines of like Drake. The thing with Drake and Future has to do with like a woman. Like a woman came, I guess, in between their situation, and now Future's kind of throwing hands at him. And with what's his name, with Kid Rocky. ASAP Rocky, Kid Rocky, with ASAP
Kid
Rocky, is that Drake threw shots at Rocky in his last album because he was like talking about Rihanna and this and that. So then Rocky just threw shots at him. So basically, Drake's been like sneak dissing people in all his albums, just like throwing sneak disses, being like a little like high schooler and just like dissing people, like mentioning people without mentioning their names. So all these guys united. And then Kanye kind of blew it open too, because Kanye was like, they called me to the studio, and I went to the studio, and he was like, they were all, Kanye said, like, they were all united for the combined efforts of the destruction of Drake. That's what Kanye said.
That's insane.
Which is a hilarious thing to say, destruction of Drake. So
Wow.
all these guys are trying to take him down, but the number one thing that stood out was the Kendrick feature on the song Like That, where he mentions Drake and J. Cole had a very popular song called First Person Shooter in Drake's last album. And then Kendrick's basically like mentioning that song, because in that song, J. Cole was saying that him and Drake and Kendrick were the big three, which is like a common term for those guys over the past decade. And then Kendrick was just basically saying like, it's just me. He was like, I'm the big guy. You guys are chumps. He called them bums, and which is the most hilarious part about that song. He calls them bum. I find that so funny, and like to me that's the funniest part. Like, he's just calling him a bum, and then he just puts Drake down on the whole song, on the feature, And so Drake put out a feature called Push Ups that's on streaming services, and that was like his response to the whole Kendrick thing. He put out he did that Push Ups thing like a month later. He came out with that, and in it he just went at everybody. He went at Metro Boomin. And the only thing he said to Metro Boomin was like, Metro Boomin, shut up and make drums. Like, he just kind of put him down. But he went at Future, he went at The Weeknd. He went at everybody. But mainly he went at Kendrick, and he called Kendrick like he called them derogatory terms for small people, little people. He called them those type of things. He did the same thing he did with Pusha T that ended up with Pusha T destroying him. Which, famously with the Pusha T thing, Pusha T released a song called Infrared, and then Drake was like, "Well, you're gonna be dissing me, I'm going to diss you," and he released a song called Duppy Freestyle, and in it, the only thing I ever remember about that song is that he says, mention my name and I might let it ring on you like Virginia Williams. That's the only thing I ever remember about that song, because that's the part where he mentions Pusha T's wife, and that was what made Pusha T go nuclear. And
Story of Adidon.
And there was a story of Adidon.
Probably one of the best diss songs of all time.
Of all time.
I mean, it's so good.
It destroyed him. And so
over the OJ beat is so good too, because that beat is so eerie. You just know like something's about to happen, and then when he reveals,
a child.
Yeah. Oh man.
Let that boy go home.
Oh,
get beat,
God.
motherfucker. That's what a wonderful song.
So good.
So playing Border
One
Patrol.
of the best diss songs ever.
I love that song, dude. Tick tick tick. I love that.
That man is sick. Oh,
so
God.
Drake did the same thing he did to Pusha T. He released that song Push Ups. It was making fun of Kendrick, making fun of his height, making fun of his money, saying that Kendrick was not gonna do nothing, and saying that and mentioned Kendrick's wife by name. He said her first name. so he did all those things, the same things that he did to Pusha T that ended up with Pusha T again, the humiliating the man. And then he released like a week later, he released like an AI song. I don't know if you're aware of this. It was like an
Mm-mm.
AI song where he like had the AI voice of Tupac and the AI voice of what's his name? Snoop Dogg.
Oh, yeah, I did hear about
And he
this. Yeah.
used their voices to like goad Kendrick into responding, because Drake was desperate to get Kendrick to respond to him like very quickly, because that's also what happened with Meek Mill. Because with Meek Mill, I don't know if you remember, because Drake destroyed Meek Mill in his beef with him, where Drake released what is it, like 100, and then he released back to back or whatever, and he destroyed Meek Mill because he released those two songs back to back, and then Meek Mill responded like the next day, and it was like a horrible response, and then they just everything got buried after that. So basically, the narrative is that he was trying to goad Kendrick into like basically releasing a song really quickly, like just making him angry and releasing a song. And Kendrick didn't do that. Kendrick waited like 2 weeks, and he released the song yesterday or like the day before yesterday.
Yeah.
And dude, since I listened to that song, I've not gotten it out of my head.
Really?
It's tremendous. I love it.
Is it really? I
It's
gotta listen
it's
to it.
fantastic.
Didn't Drake drop one called Tailor Made Freestyle
That's
or
the
whatever?
that's the one. That's the AI one.
Oh, that's the AI one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now if
Gotcha.
you go on YouTube and you go on trending, for the past like 24 hours, the number one trending video on YouTube has been the new Kendrick diss. And you know what's underneath it? Just the Fantano review being like Kendrick won. It just says Kendrick won
Yeah.
But people are expecting to see if Drake will release if there'll be like a round two to this whole thing, if Drake will release like an answer. But dude, I love the Kendrick's reply. It's great. Like I've been really into this because like the Like That song's great. Drake's like
Yeah.
push up song is really fun. Like I think he actually made like a really like fun song. And then this Kendrick thing, dude, is awesome. Like I'm not lying to you. I've listened to this thing now maybe like 7 or 8 times. I listened to it on the way home from work. I stayed in my car and listened to it again. I was like, man, this is great. Like I
Is
can't.
it called Euphoria?
Yeah, I can't get enough of
Okay.
it, dude. It's so good.
I'm gonna put this on one of my playlists here.
And
YouTube.
one of the standout like moments in it is that he says, he basically says like, you're beefing with Pharrell, I'm gonna inherit the beef, and he goes like, he goes like, you say you're pushing P. He goes, I want to see you push a T, which I found so fucking funny. He was like, oh,
That's
dude, this is like jabbing at him. It's like, oh, you lost to push a T, and there's nothing you can do about that.
That's
So
great.
yeah, man,
I gotta check that out, man. Okay, thank
that's
you
the
for
beef explained.
yeah, thanks for catching me up on that. Cause I just, like, me, I'm a huge hip hop fan, but I
Yeah.
don't like, again, those rappers like J. Cole or whoever said, yeah, we're the big three. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, you guys suck. Like,
Yeah.
okay, Kendrick doesn't suck. I'll take that back. I like Kendrick.
Yeah, Kendrick's good.
He's not my, you know, he's not my favorite, but
No.
Kendrick's great.
No, he's not my favorite either.
I love. I mean, from every album of
Let me take
Kendrick's,
this.
there's a few songs that I'm bumping,
Yeah.
like, continuously. But yeah, like, yeah, like the other, like J. Cole and Drake. J. Cole and Drake can
J. Cole has
stop making
yeah,
music.
They can.
For all
Both
I
of those
care.
guys. Both of those
Especially
guys.
Drake. I mean, Drake. If we were to rank, like it's Kendrick 1, J. Cole 2,
And
Drake
3 for sure. Yeah.
Drake's like, dude.
And it's sad for J. Cole because J. Cole's whole role here was that J. Cole was the first to respond, and he humiliated himself because he released like a diss to Kendrick off of the Like That record, and then he took it off of social media. He took it off of streaming services. He apologized about it in public, saying that he was sorry and that it was whack and that he didn't want to, So J. Cole took a huge L because he basically like released a horrible diss, and then he like apologized all weepy to Kendrick. And so then Kendrick basically just like, okay, Kendrick's moved past it, and he's just going at Drake. But whenever people get these high profile beefs, especially with Drake, like against him, I'm always like so engaged because I'm always just
Yeah.
like, yes, like get at the guy, get at the guy.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Take Drake down.
it's like at this point, like every like 5 years, every like 5 or 6 years, somebody's like, let me take this guy down a bit, like let me take this guy down like a volume.
Yeah, well, because
Yeah.
Drake's almost like the Adam Sandler of rap, where it's like he's just been responsible for some of
That's a
the.
great quote.
Thank you. I think it's accurate because he's been like Adam Sandler's been responsible for like so much crap,
Mhm.
and then Drake's the same. He's been responsible for so much crap. Like how many, dude? Just growing up, the past 15 years of our lives, dude. How much of his crap have we just like growing up sitting carpooling? I remember just carpooling middle school, high school,
Yeah.
just Drake on the radio,
Yeah.
just like, oh my god, like I've just had to sit through so
You know my
part,
dad,
and not only that, like not just carpool or on the radio, like parties, dude.
yeah.
Every party you go to, you just got to suffer through a Drake song
And even
or
if it's not,
five.
and even if it's not him directly, it's always featuring him.
Oh,
Like
I know.
when that Travis Scott song was big. What was it? Sicko Mode.
Sicko mode.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Oof.
dude! Every party we
Oof.
went to that
Sicko
year,
Mode.
and
Sicko Mode. Sicko Mode.
yeah, junior year of college, every party we went to 3 times per party was Sicko mode played. It was like Jesus Christ, enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm always down for Drake to be taken down.
So that's it, man.
Just
And again,
and whether he's rapping or singing too,
yeah.
it's like
And
ugh.
with Kendrick's a guy that I always like. He always catches my attention whenever he releases something because it's always like there's always something great. Like Good Kid, Mad City is like undeniably a classic. I love that album. To Pimp a Butterfly too. And Damn is like one of those albums where like I don't know. I think I mentioned this. Every time I listen to that album, I'm like, this is incredible. And then I
Oh
forget
yeah.
how great it is, and then I go back to it eventually, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like the guy is just so good. So every time he releases something, he always has my attention.
Yeah.
Like when he released that song, The Heart Part 5, which I thought was the best part of the whole like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers like release. And again, dude, with this song to me is incredible. Like this song he just released, like everybody's just been gushing about it. Everybody, and I agree with everybody 100%. Like it's so good. Like performance wise, it's so good. 6 minutes of just fire, dude. It's so good.
I'm excited now. Let me ask you this, dude. This is a bit of trivia, I guess. Have Drake and Kendrick ever made a song together?
They have, yeah.
What album?
Drake is featured in Poetic Justice.
Oh, that's right.
And
Yeah, I like
Kendrick
that
is
song.
featured in Thank Me Later. I don't remember the song.
Okay.
It's like a song that
So it was
features both Kendrick
both are
and
old.
Andre 3000. Yeah, they're both old. They're both from 2012, both basically.
Okay.
But
Okay.
not
No,
again
I forgot
since
about
then.
Poetic Justice. That Poetic Justice is a good song. I
Poetic
like that one.
Justice. Yeah, but not again since then. And funnily enough, Kendrick mentions in this new song that Drake apparently sent him like a feature request, revealing that in that song, First Person Shooter with Drake and J. Cole, that apparently Kendrick was supposed to also be in that song. But Kendrick was like, nope,
Wow.
nope, nope, nope.
Interesting. Yeah, and then J. Cole is someone who I can recognize that he is a good artist, and I
Mhm.
understand why people like him, especially 2014 Forest Hills Drive. I mean, that's the name of that album, right?
Yeah,
2014 Forest Hills
2014
Drive.
First Person, yeah,
And it came out in 2014 too.
yeah.
Like that's a good album. There's good songs on that album.
The
I
song
would
with
say
Kendrick
that's
is called "Buried Alive," the one in Take Care.
okay.
Yeah.
But like J. Cole, for me, it's like more of a taste thing. I don't know.
I want to give him a shot
His
because
songs
like
don't grab me.
I want to give him at least like one shot because when I went through the J's, I don't have a single J Cole album on my like ever. I've never had a single J Cole album like on my fucking library. I've listened to some of his songs. My brother likes him a little bit, and I've known people that like J Cole. So like I want to give him like a shot. Like I want to listen to because I know that whenever people talk about J Cole, they say that 2014 Forest Hills Drive is a good album.
Yeah.
And some people say that For Your Eyes Only, the one that came after that, is underrated. And then most people agree that overall his newest album, the one from like 2020, the off season, I think it is, that album is like everybody thinks is good generally. Everybody thinks it's like a good album. So I at least want to give a shot to like those three albums and just see if there's
Yeah.
anything in there for me. Because the thing is that I love his features. Like I think J. Cole's a great feature artist. Like
Eh,
he had a feature with Benny the Butcher in a song called Johnny P's Caddy, which I think is incredible. Like that song's a 10 out of 10, and I think he has a great feature in
really?
that. Like he just has like
I gotta
he
check
has
that out.
great features, dude. Like the work that he's been doing as a feature artist and like a bunch of other people's songs, the features he's done with 21 Savage, the features he's done with, again, Benny the Butcher. Like he stood out as like just being able to deliver great features. The one he did with the bit with Lil Baby, like he's just done good features. So because of that, he had generally risen in respect. Like people were generally giving him a lot of respect lately because they were like, "Oh, this guy's a great MC." He always comes through. The feature in first person shooter is great. With the Drake song. So it's like the shitty thing for J. Cole now is that he has damaged his legacy heavy. Because now people are basically being like, I never want to hear you say that you're the best guy in the game. None of this, because you apologized to another guy. So
Yeah,
it's pretty
that's
funny.
funny. Yeah, I don't know. I find J. Cole boring. I'll say this. I really like his song Kevin's Heart. Have you heard that
I
song?
have heard that song
That's my favorite J. Cole song.
off of
I
that
love that
album
song.
with him, like a Santa Claus or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That's a great song. But yeah, I find J. Cole very boring. I don't know.
Oh, me
I'm
too.
more like with rap, I'm more I like the underdogs, man. The ones that people don't like, you know, like Cudi over Kanye for me,
Yeah,
right? Like other people like Kendrick, I like Freddie Gibbs,
right, right.
Like I think Freddie Gibbs is the go. I think he should be like,
Up there.
at Kendrick status. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, dude, on no day of the week would I prefer to listen to Pimp a Butterfly over like Pinata by Freddie Gibbs
Hmm.
ever.
Hmm.
Never. It's just a taste thing, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just the people that are like in that upper echelon, regarded at least,
Hmm.
the J. Cole's, the Kendricks, the Drake for whatever
Drake.
reason.
Yeah.
Um,
Drake.
and like Kanye, I'm just not. I don't know. I'm just not interested in like
Yeah.
really any of them
The
that
only.
much. Kendrick the most for
Yeah.
me. Like Kendrick, I do like quite a few of his songs, but even still, I still kind of find him a little boring
Yeah.
overall.
I like all these guys. Like me. Like that I love Cudi, and I love Gibbs. I
Yeah,
love all the Griselda guys. Like me. Like Earl. I love all these guys, all the underground
yeah,
hip hop guys. I love all of them. Um, fucking Mac Homie and Baldy James. Like I like all these guys, but I really also like I really do love like I mean me. I love Kanye. I've been doing a Kanye retrospective for 2 weeks in a row,
yeah, yeah,
and in which basically I've just said basically all the albums so far have been perfect albums.
yeah.
And I love Kendrick. I go back and forth with Drake because I do enjoy his projects sometimes. That I was like that I got really into that fucking like dance, like that one
Yeah,
dance one.
that's
What
right.
was
I
it?
forgot about that.
What was the name of that album?
I don't remember.
Remember
I can picture
this?
it. It
Take
had
this
like lightning
tomorrow.
bolt
Yeah, it was
text
it
on
was
it.
it was some bullshit. But I got really into that album, and then I think he has at least three good albums. Because I really do think that Take Care is good, and I think that Nothing Was the Same is good, and I think that If You're Reading This Is Too Late is good. So I defend him. I will like defend Drake and say like he's done good shit. Which is funny though, because those three albums are albums where he was just kind of being himself. Because I feel like what's happened to that guy now is that he's just sold out to such an extent. He's just creatively bankrupt. Like everything he makes just
Mm.
feels soulless. But those first three albums, like those three albums out of his first four albums in his career, because his first album was like Thank Me Later or whatever. Those three albums I think are good. Everything else I think is basically like some level of ass.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
more tolerable than the other.
He's just so vanilla.
Yeah.
He's just like that's if I that's like the best word I can use to describe like him, J. Cole, honestly, like Kanye to an
Mhm.
extent.
Mhm.
I know like that's one of your favorite artists, but just for me personally, like I'm
Yeah,
just kind of like, I don't know. Like
I
I
feel
don't
you.
know.
I
It's
feel
just
you,
a
dude.
taste thing. I like weirder shit, I guess, which Kanye stuff does get weird. And I like his weirder songs.
Yeah.
Like before, right before we hopped on the podcast, I was listening to Guilt Trip by Kanye and Cudi. I mean,
Hmm.
that off of Yeezus, that's
Hmm.
my favorite Kanye song.
Really.
That's a great song.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
think I think
they all
Kanye.
have songs that
Yeah.
are like fire,
I think Kanye, and I'll get more into this when I talk about this side of his career, this like the 2010 side of his career. But I will go out of my way to say, and I'll expand about that more, but that he is the most like innovative mainstream artist out of
Yeah,
the last like 30 to 40 years, I would say.
yeah, I would agree with that.
Because it's interesting,
Definitely.
because it's like, you listen to something like Yeezus, and obviously, in terms of like experimental hip hop, if you put it side to side with like the Money Store outclasses it in terms of like pure eccentricity and pure like avant garde, like industrial experimental hip hop.
You're
But
talking for those listening. This is the Money Store by
by
Death
Death Grips,
Grips,
yeah, yeah. It's like I'm
their
talking.
debut album.
It's like the listeners just not here. Um,
No, it's cool, man.
but I do, I want to make that point on his behalf too, because I think that, when you reach such a level where he was, which basically is like, because he was inhabiting, he, for about a period of like 5 to 6 years, he basically inhabited the position that Drake has been in for the past decade, of just being the number one basically male artist in the planet. And I think for somebody to be in that position and to do the things he did, it's pretty fascinating. But that's a short tangent because I'm not going to go on. The kind of retrospective, folks, is on break this week because I didn't listen to the albums.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. Well, we got a short recess
Yeah.
from the Yay train.
The Yay Train,
The
dude.
Yay train has stopped for refueling.
Yeah, which I want to get through him because very soon the Yay Train is basically becoming the Kid Cudi train.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
the Kendrick train, which is I'm excited for that.
Oh, true.
Like
Very
literally,
true.
I'm going from Kanye. Like as soon as I'm finished with Kanye, I have three artists. Actually, two because I already listened to one of them. I had two artists. No, actually three. It was four, but I listened to one of them. I have four artists in between Kendrick. Then I'll get to Kendrick, and then before I get to Cudi, I have one, two, three, four artists. So
Yep.
I'll get to the
Oh
points.
man, anytime I see anything Cudi related this past week, I've just gotten really sad
I
because
know,
his
right?
tour got canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had tickets to Cudi's Insano tour,
Yeah,
and
that sucks, dude.
yeah, he broke his foot. What was it? At Coachella?
At Coachella,
Broke
in
his
the
foot.
most like lame ass way, I have to say.
Yeah,
Like in the
yeah.
lamest way. Did you see that video?
I did.
It
Yeah,
was the lamest thing. I saw that video before I knew he broke his foot. Like people were just
yeah.
sharing it,
Me too.
and I saw that and I was like, Cuddy, you're old, bro. Like that was my first thought. I was like, you're 40, bro. Like, what are you doing? Like, you just see the man like jump off stage in the most like uncoordinated
Yeah,
in the most uncoordinated, just like way possible. He like
yeah,
jumps and one of his like one leg is like all the way up to his chest, and the
yeah,
other leg is just dangling. And it's
yeah,
like, dude, what are you doing? And then he just falls on that other leg, all of his weight, and he fell on that leg in like a super like just like, bro, you've never jumped this high before. Like he fell on
yeah,
it in a way that he was putting all his pressure on one side of the foot. And it's like, what are you doing? And so
yeah.
obviously he broke his fucking foot. It's like,
I
what
know.
is wrong with you, man?
Yeah, I'm
Fool.
sad, man. It sucks, man.
And
I
I
feel
know
like
I'm angry,
because the other
man.
day, I know, dude. Like the other day, I said something to the effect of like, well, when I listen that when I see Cuddy in live someday, and then I got bitter because I was just like, well, I was supposed to see him live this year
Yeah.
in what 2 months, but it ain't happening now, man. Oh
Yeah,
well.
it wasn't meant to be, dude. I told you. I told you over text messages. Like, dude, you weren't supposed to do this without me.
Yeah,
that's really the moral of the story of the story here.
yeah. I mean, maybe hey, like maybe a future concert it'll be easier for all of us to
Yeah,
get together and go to it. But yeah, I mean, I will say like there, even though it was it stung, it was kind of a I will say what lessened the impact, what kind of cushioned the impact, is the fact that I'm not crazy about the album that he's
Insano.
actually
Yeah,
touring. In
yeah.
fact, yeah, well,
Like
no,
it would.
I like disc 2. I like side B of the
I still
album,
haven't
but
listened to that. I've not been motivated. I'm just gonna get to it when I get to him.
it's
Um,
good. It's good.
I
It's like it's what the album should have been, I think.
it
Disc
would
A is like the stuff he should have left
it would be
on the
great to see him just do like a tour where it's like I'm just touring my like basically like the Death Grips
the
thing.
Eras tour,
Yeah, like I'm
like
just
Taylor Swift.
yeah, or like I said, the Death Grips things that you and I went to see. It's like, oh, it's just our dope songs. Here are our
Right.
dope songs for every album.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I feel like it's tough cuz yeah, like you never I feel like especially artists that I love, I don't want them to just tour one album. It's like I
Yeah,
want to
it's like
hear
come
like a
on,
bunch
man,
of stuff, which of course they always sprinkle in like the
a
hits,
couple songs. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
in the pursuit of happiness.
but yeah, oh yeah, you knew that was coming.
Yeah.
But I will say, yeah, I would have been a lot. I would have been way more upset if it was like something as good as Kids See Ghosts or
Right. Oh
Passion Painted Demon
man.
Slaying. That would have, if it
Yeah.
was like that, I would be like, fuck, dude, that
Upset for sure.
sucks.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
fact that I didn't love Insano lessened the blow a little bit, so I
Yeah.
will survive.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, dude. While we're on the subject of rap beefs, what comes to mind in terms of the best rap diss songs? Have we talked about this on the
We
podcast
have
before?
not talked about this before.
Okay, what comes to mind for you?
I am not like as well versed in that subject as I would like to. Because I
Yeah,
know that people talk a lot about like Jay-Z and Nas, and like how Nas destroyed Jay-Z back in the day.
yeah.
Um, I also love the Tupac and Biggie, like, this
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
that Tupac diss, I forget the name of it, but that's a great diss. Um, if you say the words like rap beef though, just because I feel like because of our age, like the number one things that come to me are just things that happened in the 2010s, because those are the things that I
Yeah,
was like really well aware of. And ultimately, it's the Pusha T and Drake.
yeah. I mean, for sure.
Yeah,
That's one of the best, definitely.
yeah.
The ones that come to mind for me, you mentioned Jay Z and Nas. I'm glad you did because I almost forgot that one.
That's
Ether
right.
by
Ether.
Nas.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's a great song. That's just a great song. I liked it before I even knew it was a Jay Z diss, and then
Yeah,
when I listened to lyrics more closely, I was like, oh shit, he's dissing Jay Z.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, Ether comes to mind. Wanksta by 50 Cent, great diss song. Aimed at Ja Rule. Do you know that one?
I don't
I mean,
know.
you probably know it if you heard it.
Maybe.
It's one of his more popular songs.
What is it?
Um,
Hit him up. The Tupac one. I like that one.
yeah. Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
The diss that 50 Cent and Eminem did at Ja Rule, they rapped over Hail Mary by Tupac
That's
and dissed
awesome.
Ja Rule.
Yeah.
I don't think that one's on like streaming. I think it's only on YouTube. But that's a good one.
Yeah.
Other ones that come to mind for me, of course, yeah, Story of Adidon by Pusha T
Pusha.
comes to mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like back to back
And then,
too, man. I like the Make Me Old Diss.
oh, I don't know. That one doesn't come to mind for me.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm trying to think. I have a song playing in my head when you said that, but I don't remember if that's the one.
Go back to
If I'm
back.
thinking, yeah, no, I don't like that one. It's Drake, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Meek Mill. This, yeah, no, I don't think that one.
I googled it.
Um,
Greatest rap beefs of all time.
Chief Keef, his songs "War" and "Pull Up," which are Migos disses, those are
Yeah.
great. Especially "War." "War" is like one of the. That's an underrated diss song, dude. That was a Migos diss.
Yeah.
that's just like a freaking like, if I was on the receiving end, like if that song was aimed at me, War by Chief Keef,
Yeah.
like I think I just need to like not only stop this beef but also leave the country for 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, it's a scary ass diss song.
I'm trying to open
Oh,
this.
and Live by Your Rep by 3 6 Mafia dissing Bone Thugs and Harmony. That's a
The
great diss song.
most disrespectful diss tracks in hip hop history by Ranker.com. The number one is Hit 'Em Up, according to them, the Tupac one, at Biggie. This is the Notorious B.I.G., Mobb Deep, P. Diddy, Junior Mafia, Lil Kim, and Chino XL. No Vaseline by Ice Cube is number two. This is Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, and MC Ren. Let me see. Number three is for some reason F the Police. This is the Police.
Well, this is the Police, yeah.
Ether. This is Jay-Z. Real MFGs. It's an Eazy-E one. It says this is Death Row Records, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Number six, Euphoria by Kendrick Lamar. This is Drake. So there's a new entry, dude. This song came out a couple days ago. Number seven, Kill Shot by Eminem. I never really liked that MGK. Number eight, The Story of Adidon by Pusha T. Number nine, Drake Day by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg dissing Luke, Tim Dog, Ruthless Records, and ECE. And number 10 is The Warning by Eminem dissing Mariah Carey and Nick Cannon.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot Eminem dated Mariah Carey.
Oh man.
Her song "Obsessed," I think, is about Eminem.
People it is. It is about
speculated.
Eminem. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it at that. That's the top 10 according to them.
There's a list I'm looking at here. It's not the one I was thinking of, but they have the game 300 Bars and Runnin', which is a diss track at 50 Cent. It looks like. But the one I was thinking of by the game is 92 Bars, which is a Meek Mill diss. That's a great diss song. Very underrated diss track. Back when they were beefing in, I think it was like 2016, maybe.
Yeah. I love rap beef, dude. I love these dudes like going at each other.
Live by Your Rep by 3 6 Mafia is the most violent diss song. They literally talk about like skinning Bone Thugs and Harmony alive and like boiling them and like disemboweling them and stuff. Because they were on the horrorcore tear at the time, and so they're literally just talking about like chopping them up, skinning them, like pouring boiling water on them, like sacrificing them to the devil. Like, it's like, holy fuck.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway. Well, what should we do, dude? I have that pitch.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it, dude. I rambled enough about the rap beef's history.
That's cool, man. I needed to be caught up on that. I've been really focused on I've just been in my own world the past couple of weeks. I've really been focusing on this novel I'm writing. Just dude, I've been like up late. Like it's been like a bunch of late nights just trying to get a certain word count every day.
Yeah.
Because this is gonna be a long ass. It's like an epic dark fantasy novel. It's probably gonna end up being like 150,000 words. Which is like pretty standard for epic fantasy, I guess.
Yeah.
I might, depending on what like literary agents say or whatever, maybe I'll have to trim it down a little bit. But I mean, nobody wants to read an epic fantasy novel that's under 120,000 words, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You're pushing, dude. You're pushing.
Yeah, man. It's been a lot of hard work. It's been exhausting, but I love it, dude. I'd give my the craft of writing, dude. I'd give my life to it. I do give my life to it.
Yeah.
But anyway, a less serious story idea that I had, dude. So I was thinking about this. It just popped. Sometimes the weirdest ideas pop into my head. A lot of times when I'm driving these days, it seems to be the common theme that I'll think of something like while I'm driving.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I was in the car. I was eating Chick-fil-A. And on Fridays, dude, I have so Fridays are my cheat day. So I eat like super clean, super healthy, like calorie restrictive diet 6 days out of the week. And then on Friday, I have a cheat day. I'll have a little Chick-fil-A for lunch, and I'll have some pizza for dinner.
Yeah, classic.
And so, I'm eating Chick-fil-A in my car, and sometimes I'll put on like some guilty pleasure stuff on YouTube. Just go all out, man. Guilty pleasure food, guilty pleasure YouTube videos, and one of my guilty pleasures, not so guilty, I guess, but you kind of know what I'm getting at, is Chris Hansen, dude. The Chris Hansen To Catch a Predator videos.
Okay.
So, dude, so for those unfamiliar, Chris Hansen, I'm sure everybody knows it by now, but Chris Hansen, reporter guy, would basically, he still does it. He works with police to, they lure basically potential child predators to a sting house, and then they arrest them. They have someone who's posing as a child, right? Who's like texting the predator. Predator shows up, and then Chris Hansen, always his classic line, "Why don't you have a seat for me?" And then he starts asking them questions. He interviews them, asks them questions, gets them to spill some of their secrets. Of course, I'm sure the police can use it later in court. Anyway, the excuse, and you've heard this, right? The excuse that they often give, probably like 7 out of 10 times, I would say, is like, "Oh, well, I was just worried, I was just coming to like check on the kid.
them.
I was worried." I was worried, I thought, and like sometimes they're like, "Oh, I'm afraid, I was afraid they were getting pimped out or something, or being trafficked." So I thought, what if that was actually the case? Someone actually showed up. And what if
that person
not only that,
what if they were donkey
what if it was the Punisher, dude? So instead of Hansen versus Predator, it's Hansen versus
the
Punisher. So dude, you got freaking, and this will be a comic book miniseries, maybe like 8 issues, dude. You could never do it because you'd have to get rights to Chris Hansen's likeness and to Disney's Punisher.
There must be a way.
Oh yeah, dude. Maybe, who knows? You'd have to do like a parody where they're like, not quite them, but dude, Hansen versus Punisher, man. So you got like Chris Hansen, right? He's setting up the sting operation. And then
Punisher,
and then
the kid.
and then they're talking to who they don't realize yet is the Punisher online, basically saying like, "Hey,
it has to be played by John Bernthal."
Oh, absolutely. And they're like, it has to be drawn in his likeness.
Yeah, it has to be drawn in his likeness for sure.
Yeah, and so they're texting who they don't realize yet is the Punisher, and it's like, "Hey, got a kid here, right? $50, whatever." They're pimping out the kid, and then Punisher shows up, and it's like that. What you just said. Where is he? Chris Hansen comes out. He's like, "Sir, what are you doing here? Why don't you have a seat?"
What did you have a seat?
But then,
where's the
Punisher?
Child? Who are you?
Exactly. But so Punisher's saying that, but Chris Hansen's like, "Oh, well, it's the same old shtick, It's
I'm here to protect them."
Exactly. So the long and short of it is, I wanted to plan this out a little more. I didn't have time, but
I love it,
the long and short of it is that like Punisher eventually escapes the sting house. The police are after him. And then maybe you'd have a storyline too where like the mob is also after him, because Punisher won't kill cops, so you couldn't really have any fight scenes unless there's also a criminal element in there. So you could have a side story where that comes into play, where like the mob is also after him for a different side quest that he went on. But dude, Chris Hansen's after him, and Chris Hansen's entire goal is to just get him to have a seat.
Right.
That's the whole.
Have a seat.
He's just trying to get, and you know what I thought of, and this is going to be a thumbnail for the clip, is like you have Chris Hansen, and then you have that image of Punisher sitting in the chair where he's just like, no.
That face. You guys are getting this all wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so it'd be Hansen versus Punisher. But that, yeah, you'd have to do some sort of midpoint twist, because that would get old. So you'd have to have something in the midpoint where maybe they team up or something. But yeah, it'd be like the conflict would be between, like, vigilante justice versus Chris Hansen and the police doing justice the right way. Yeah. But that's Hansen versus Punisher, dude.
I love that idea, dude. That's a great idea. That is a great idea. It's so much fun. I love stories. I love shit like that. I mean, that's where the whole idea with the story that we mentioned here before, the Not You Donkey Kong story. I love shit like that, just like obtuse, like like mashing things together. I love it.
Exactly, man. Dude, I think that would fly off the shelves.
Yeah, I agree.
Hansen versus Punisher.
I agree.
That would fly off the.
You should do it. You should do it like in an unlicensed way. It's like every time I go to the stores, I always see like, oh, this is unlicensed, or like unauthorized shit like that. You should do something like that, dude. Just like some unlicensed, like unauthorized, like there's just like a fan thing. Like go to like a comic convention.
You actually see stuff like that?
Yeah, all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think, because I feel like fan. I guess that falls in the realm of fan fiction.
Wasn't that the whole thing with like Del Pollak's like thing about George Lucas too? That it was like unauthorized.
Well, I think Lucas disowned it or something, but I don't know if that was after the fact or immediately. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I guess, yeah, because what's the deal with fan fiction? It's like
I think it falls under fair use.
It's legal unless. I thought, well, because not all fan fiction's parody, though. I think fan fiction, it's legal until it makes a profit, and then it, like, if someone,
if you're turning
the
a
second
profit.
someone, yeah, I don't know if this is true. I don't know much about it because I don't, I've never really written fan fiction, but I feel like that's the case, maybe, but I don't know. I feel like still, if you put this like if you did this hypothetically, like Hansen versus Punisher, and put it up online for for free, wouldn't it still be copyright infringement? I don't know.
I don't know
much about that.
I don't know. And I think technically what you said to me, technically it could still fall under just like parody,
Yeah.
I think that could protect you. I don't know. Anybody listening to this?
Parody would have to not be their. No, because they use actual.
Yeah,
it can still be their names.
Yeah, it can be literally
because
their names.
If you watch like South Park, they still use like actual fictional characters, don't they? In South Park, like Imagination Land, they have a ton of fictional characters in that.
I don't know. I mean, they have little episodes of Mickey Mouse, and the Jonas Brothers.
Yeah, right. That's true. And Family Guy does that all the time too.
It's one of those things where it's like, somebody in the comments, if you're listening, maybe you can educate us. But I think you would be able to do it and get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And if you're a comic book artist, maybe message me and we could work together. I'm willing to put, in like, I don't know, a few weeks of my life toward this. Not that much. I'm not that passionate about
it. I'm with it, dude. I'm with it. I'm putting my effort towards materializing this as long as I get a free copy.
Yeah. Okay. Deal.
Love the idea, dude.
All right. What else we got, man?
Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah, dude. What else we got? Should we get into recaps?
We can get. I literally have no recap. Like I have nothing.
Okay, it sounded like you had another topic.
No, I can leave it up to you. Because I feel like I've maybe rambled a little bit too much on rap nonsense.
No, you're good. Let me see.
Because
guys, help us out. Leave in the comments. What should we do for the last 40 minutes of the
show?
Right.
We're gonna wait for you guys to answer. Because if you want to go, if you feel like you want to get into detail with your recap, because I really have not. I haven't seen anything. I haven't listened to anything. Because
let me see. Yeah, let me see here. Yeah, I guess I'll do my recap. Yeah, so I mean, movie wise, the only movie that I watched beside the movie of the week, I watched for the first time ever Event Horizon.
What is that? I've heard that before.
It's the sci-fi horror film from the 90s with Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill is in it. Basically, for those listening, the premise is in 2047, a group of astronauts are sent to investigate and salvage the starship Event Horizon, which disappeared mysteriously 7 years before on its maiden voyage. With its return, the crew of the Lewis and Clark discovers the real truth behind the disappearance of the Event Horizon and something even more terrifying. Essentially, it's the spaceship, which everybody kind of, you know, that you could put this in the log line. It's not a spoiler or anything. It's like the spaceship essentially went to hell
Uh-huh.
and is now back, because basically the spaceship, Sam Neill's character invented it to where it has the Event Horizon spaceship has a black hole, like it creates its own black hole
Okay.
to fold space time to travel, to other star systems. But
That's a fascinating premise.
yeah, but what it ended up doing, instead of going to other star systems, it opened a portal to another dimension, which turns out to be hell. And so now the ship is sort of like sentient, in a way where like people, they go on board the ship to kind of figure out what happened, and they start seeing like, you know, dead relatives and like hearing voices,
Hmm.
and there's some solid body horror in it too, very like Hellraiser-esque
Hmm.
stuff. It's very much from the vein of Hellraiser. It's like Hellraiser meets Alien in a way, I guess, is probably the best way to describe it. It's pretty solid. I mean, honestly, like I give it a 7 out of 10. The only reason that I didn't give it like an 8 was because it's from the 90s, and
And Sam
the
Jackson's
thing.
in this?
No, Lawrence Fishburne,
Okay.
and Lawrence
Of
Fishburne and
course.
Sam Neill,
Sam Neill,
and
okay. You know what the
yeah,
funny thing is? Let me interrupt you for a second.
yeah, go
Have you
ahead.
seen the famous viral video of a guy, of like a reporter introducing Sam Jackson as Lawrence Fishburne?
No, no,
You haven't seen
holy
this? This is
shit,
a
no, I
thing.
haven't seen that.
That's why I laughed when you said it was Lawrence Fishburne. I was like, oh my god, I confused Lawrence Fishburne with Sam Jackson. There's an interview where like the interviewer introduces him and he goes like, we have with us Lawrence Fishburne, and it's Sam Jackson. And Sam Jackson is like, what? It's like, he's like, what did you say? He's like, who did you say I am? He goes like, you think we all look the same? It was a white
Maybe I have
interviewer.
seen that. I feel like maybe you showed me that a
I
long
think so,
time
dude.
ago.
I mean,
That's awesome, man. Holy shit. Uh, I need to go. I need to go watch that again. Wait, let me just type it in so I have it for later.
Lawrence
Lawrence
Fishburne,
Fishburne,
Sam Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. That's awesome. Oh my god, like
Okay.
dude, his face in the
Of
thumbnail. Holy shit.
course.
They look nothing
They look
alike.
nothing alike. Nothing. They don't look alike at all. Okay.
Oh man, that's awesome. I feel like I have seen other videos of people mistaking actors or giving actors the wrong name though. That it seems like that's happened quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um so okay, so the only issue that I had with the movie was or like the kind of major issue that bogged it down is it's a 90s sci-fi film, right?
Mhm.
So like and I thought of an interesting point while I was watching it, because I think the 80s and 90s, we talked about this before, where like the 80s were like the decade for genre films, right? So like you had like great action films, sci-fi, horror, great dark fantasy filmmaking
Mhm.
in the 80s was top notch,
Right.
right?
Right.
Not so much for like great dramas in the 80s. There weren't as I feel like as many of those, right?
Right.
Um then it was like the opposite in the 90s, where like there 90s you just had banger after banger in terms of like Oscar worthy films. I mean, you had, you had Schindler's List, Shawshank Redemption, Saving Private Ryan. You had just all of these great films, but I feel like genre films, with some exceptions, like you had Jurassic Park was revolutionary in the 90s. You had The Matrix, right? With some exceptions, I think horror in the 90s like tanked. I mean, there's like, you had Scream, which was like horror parody. Um, but and a lot of, I think, so like horror sci-fi films of the 90s really kind of took kind of went down in quality, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And I think, and there's always going to be people rushing to the comments. Well, what about this? What about that? Yes, we can play the what about game, but I'm talking about like in terms of just quantity of, you know, good shit, right? And I think part of it is because of the advent of CGI. And the thing is, though, is it was a necessary evil,
Mhm.
because if they didn't, it was kind of like a training ground for CGI in the 90s. You have to have that transitional period where people are just still kind of figuring out CGI, right?
Mhm.
Because if they didn't use it, well, we wouldn't have the good CGI that we sometimes get now, right? And man, let me tell you, there's some goofy 90s shit in Event Horizon that drag it down a point for me. Like, especially like, I mean, there is some PS2, PlayStation 2 ass looking graphics where I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my God, how did this even make it into the movie? Like, there's you know, because there's like zero gravity where there's like all these utensils and stuff floating in the ship, and it's just PlayStation 2 like pixelated stuff. And it's like, holy shit, you couldn't just hang some spoons on wires or
Yeah.
something? Like, holy shit, this looks awful. So there's quite a bit of like goofy kind of 90s shit in the movie that dragged it down for me. But other than that, like I'll say, you know, and this movie falls into the subgenre of Lovecraftian horror as well. And I got to say, the older I get, the more I think Lovecraftian horror is what scares me probably the most.
Mhm.
You know, don't get me wrong, like a solid, like you and I watched Gonjiam Haunted Asylum
That's right.
in October. And there's some like spooky stuff like that still gets me, that gives you like the creep factor, where it's just more going for the creep factor. You know, what's in the shadows, creepy ass house, you know, just that kind of, you know, just that creepy vibe. You know, stuff like Blair Witch, Sinister, Insidious, Paranormal Activity. You go on and on. That's most horror, I feel like. But in terms of just real sort of dread, Lovecraftian horror is what really gets me. Just the idea of, you know, going to like a void or going to hell forever.
Yeah.
Just that type of stuff is like, fuck, dude. Like, that gets under my skin, man.
Yeah.
I will say, Event Horizon got under my skin in several scenes where I was, you know, and I'm a pretty seasoned horror guy, and there were some scenes that, you know, watching alone in a dark room, I felt get under my skin. So it was fairly effective.
Hmm.
So I'll say it's. I've been meaning to get around to it for quite some time, and yeah, I'll say it kind of surpassed my expectations in a lot of ways too. But yeah, that's Event Horizon. That's probably all I gotta say about that one.
I dig it.
And
That's one of those movies that the name always like intrigued me. Like that movie Deep Impact. Like you know what, you know that movie, like it's called like Deep Impact. I think it's also like a sci-fi movie. Like that
you're,
movie and
you're
this
not talking
movie.
about you're not talking about Deep Rising,
No, it's called Deep Impact.
Deep Impact. I've never seen that one. Oh, that's got Morgan Freeman in it.
Morgan Freeman.
Lawrence Fishburne. No, I'm just kidding.
It's like one of those sci-fi movies with like an interesting name, you know, Event Horizon. It's like it's
Yeah,
like always like stuck there, but I've never seen the movie. And this is the first time
yeah,
I've
yeah,
actually ever heard what it's actually about.
yeah. Yeah, well, because Deep Impact, yeah, that's the 90s too. Yeah, 90s was just filled with a lot of crap like sci-fi. They all have like terrible reviews too. And I feel like movies like the ones that were really good, like The Matrix and Jurassic Park, are like probably the best genre films that I can think of from the 90s. Were made with a lot of like just love and care, and there was like a real effort that had to go into those to actually make those good.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so it was a tricky time for genre films, I think. And then switching gears to TV, Jack and I finished Death Note.
Nice, dude. What did
Man,
you
because
think? I've seen the whole thing.
you've okay, you've seen the whole thing,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll keep it spoiler free since people didn't ask for a didn't pull up a Death Note review or anything. But yeah, man, like holy shit. Yeah, one of the best shows I've seen in a while.
Yeah, what did you
Um,
think? Like, I guess like in the spirit of keeping this like you said a little bit spoiler free for everybody listening.
mhm, yeah,
What was your opinion? Because this show in a way has like two parts.
hmm
Like what
we
did you
talked about
think?
that.
Like what did you think about like how things went in the like once big things happen in the first part and then transition to the second part of the show?
Yeah, yeah. So Jack and I talked about that a little bit. Jack was a little more bothered by that than I was. Like I was
Hmm.
very shocked at kind of the big turn, like toward I want to say it was like end of the second third of that show because it's not much longer where he's you have that final confrontation with N or whatever. That's not that many episodes. I feel like that's only the last third maybe of the show. I don't think it's a half and half split. Um, but no, I didn't mind it. I mean, Jack, I remember said like, um, he was just kind of like, yeah, man, I feel like once insert big twist happens, like I kind of uh lost interest a little bit.
Hmm.
Because he didn't even end up finishing it the first time around.
Really?
Once that happened,
Yeah.
he stopped watching it.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of understood what he was saying, and I did feel like a couple episodes in that last third of the show, the final, like I guess the third act of the show, dragged a little bit. But overall, I actually really liked that because it reminded me a lot of Breaking Bad,
Hmm.
where in the final season you kind of have Walt like without real kind of enemies for a little while, and then he kind of has like he's facing off against the Nazis or whatever, and like I compared it to that, and I in both instances I actually like that quite a bit because in Death Note I thought it worked because it was sort of this idea of light, um, being sort of feeling invincible, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so you're just waiting for the moment for him where it's like that smug little fucking smirk is just wiped off his face,
Right.
and,
Right.
and it
Right.
just makes it all the more satisfying because he's been just winning, the whole show, not without its challenges, which is what makes it entertaining because he's
Hmm.
really got to like he's pushed to his
Yeah.
limits.
Yeah.
Um,
I love
but
the cat and
overall,
mouse aspect of it.
oh, dude,
Yeah.
man, I was reminded so much of Breaking Bad. A lot of this show, just the chess games and stuff. I
Hmm.
wonder if Vince Gilligan like watched
It's
that
possible because obviously this
watched Death Note.
preceded Breaking Bad.
Exactly, yeah, because like very similar the cat and mouse chess games that were being played between Light and L, um, and other enemies as well. But yeah, like overall, man, I mean, like top to bottom, I thought the ending was like wholly satisfying
Hmm.
too. I mean,
Hmm.
I thought I thought it was perfect. I mean,
Hmm.
it was a perfect ending, I thought.
I'd have to rewatch it because I always had the feeling that it just declined heavily. Like I remember my interest, like just like
Heavily, huh?
yeah, I remember my interest, like just kind of like I was like I was like like to me it
You do kinda
dragged.
miss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would love to rewatch it just for the sense of like having a new perspective because I haven't seen this show in a long time. I would say I haven't seen the show in like a decade maybe. Like everything's really
Mhm,
fresh on me. I remember everything. I've seen a lot of videos about it.
mhm.
But I would have to see if I feel different about how it turns out by the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so in when everything sort of, takes a big turn in the last third of the story, or in the second act break, I guess, of the entire show, um, I wasn't I was, of course, shocked, but I
Hmm.
wasn't entirely surprised,
Yeah.
because I feel like they slow boil you up to it because
Hmm.
what that show was really good at is it never overplayed its hand, and what I mean by that is that show was like, "Hey, we have this incredibly intriguing premise that's going to go on for a few episodes, but
Mm,
we're going to throw you a curveball every couple episodes where a new character gets introduced, and they kept changing things up. You
right.
know, like Misa, she's not in it until like the second act of the show, I
Hmm.
believe.
Hmm.
She quite a few episodes before she's in it. So
Right.
they introduce new elements to the show, whether that's a new dynamic, a new character, at like just the right time, like right before the old dynamic would have started to get old,
Mm,
their current
mm,
dynamic would have started to get old, you know? And I just thought the pacing of the show was immaculate in that way.
mm,
And then of course, like the art is phenomenal. That goes without saying. Um, I love just kind of the moral conflict of the show where
mm,
it's sort of this idea of justice and I'm justice
mm.
versus like no one man is justice.
Right.
That's a great moral dilemma in the show. um, they do a great job with that. All the characters are very well are
The
fleshed
intro with
out.
him was like a Christ figure.
Exactly,
It's fascinating,
exactly. Yeah, it's it is a fascinating show. I
and
mean,
like,
Light is a very compelling
yeah,
protagonist. Like he one of the best again, like Breaking Bad. I mean,
yeah,
very one of the best villainous protagonists
yeah.
I've seen since Walter White.
Oh, dude, for sure, for sure.
I mean, barely any redeeming quality, really no redeeming qualities actually.
Mm.
Walt had at least some redeeming qualities, but Light doesn't love
No, Light
anybody.
is a tool.
Oh, dude,
Uh,
he's a complete psychopath. But you're like there's things in that show. There's techniques that they use though to keep you invested in
mhm.
him because you want to see what he does next. What's
Right,
he going to do now? How
right,
far will he go?
right. Can he
How is he
outsmart
going to
everybody? Yeah.
exactly? How's he
It's
going to
fascinating.
outsmart
I think it's
everybody?
something interesting about it too. Is because this is a show that is based on a manga, Japanese
Hmm.
graphic novel, which I believe it was published in Shonen Jump, which was a weekly magazine. So this is coming out every week. These guys are pumping out these comics every week,
Hmm.
which is the fascinating part about that, because I think they had the pulse on the audience of like, okay, we have to switch it up, and then obviously then this was adapted into an anime, which then the folks making the adaptation also had the vantage point of knowing what to cut out and what to keep in, and how fast to
Yeah.
kind of pace it. So it's a wonderful adaptation for sure.
Oh, it's immaculate. Yeah, I love like Misa is a great character, just really like true to life in
Hmm.
terms of like just kind of the crazy, femme fatale that who's a little loopy, and you're kind of like, I don't,
Hmm.
she might be a little dangerous
Hmm.
too, which she definitely is.
Hmm.
But also provides some good comic relief as well to the show. But nobody does comic relief in that show like Ryuk,
Oh
the
yeah, I'll do it for
Shinigami.
sure. Yeah, yeah,
Ryuk's the man because
yeah.
what I love about Ryuk
Cute,
is
cute,
that
cute.
ultimately he's a death god, and he
Yeah,
sort of takes the same position as the audience,
yeah.
where none of this really
He's just
matters to him.
entertained. He's just like, this is just fun. This is just me kicking the shit. At some point, I mean, I'm not gonna go into that, but yeah,
Right. At some point, like, yeah, things are not going to work out
yeah,
for any of these people.
exactly.
Yeah, and the thing, like, one of my favorite things in that show is just all of the scenes where Light says, like, "Oh my God, this insert, horrible, terrible thing has gone wrong in my life," and then it just cuts to Ryuk, and he's just like,
A huge smile. Yeah,
he's just giggling.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, what you gonna
What
do
you gonna do
now,
now?
Light?
Yeah, it's awesome. It is awesome.
Uh-oh, Light, things are getting interesting again.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yep.
good, Ryuk.
Yeah,
That's
this is
the
pretty
first
good.
time I've ever
Pretty
even
good. Very
attempted
good
it.
of the American. I guess like the American thing.
Oh yeah, we watched the dub, so the
Yeah.
dub's great. Um, yeah, I love the female Shinigami too. I forget what her name was, but she was great
Ren.
too. Yeah, that's
It's
right.
funny
She
how I
was
remember all these things. Again, I saw this so long ago, dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Light's dad
I
was
love their
great.
tennis match.
Yeah, oh yeah, that was fantastic. That was a great way to introduce their rivalry.
Mhm.
Um, but and to see, because it got you invested in like who's going to come out on top in
Mhm.
this tennis match and who's going to come out on top overall, and it
Mhm.
was just them like constantly outwitting each other and outwitting each other,
Mhm.
to like the nth degree, and it's like holy shit. um and then yeah, I thought Mr. Yagame too, Light's dad, was like a great just moral center for the show
Mhm.
too. Although he does he does do that thing toward the middle of the series with the blank and the gun or whatever, where I was like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
But like he was almost kind of like the Hank of, again, going to Breaking Bad. He was almost like the Hank of the series, where he was
Mhm.
sort of like the moral, like the only one that was like close to heroism.
Yeah.
Which Hank in Breaking Bad was still a anti-hero in my opinion, but
Yeah.
we won't go into that. But he was like a good kind of moral grounding for the show. Because like L, in the show, I didn't find him to be a particularly moral character. I found
No.
him to kind of be a mirror image of Light in a way.
Mhm. Mhm.
And same with the other one, the Kilua looking motherfucker
Mhm.
in the other later episodes.
Mhm.
Um, like I didn't find L to be a particularly moral character. I thought
No, I
he
don't think
was.
that was his motivation at all.
No, he just was playing a game, like Light,
Mhm.
which you know I did think of. There is a stat about the top kind of 10, you know, career choices for psychopaths, and one of them is law enforcement.
Mhm.
And it's because that shit is, a game to them. And they set that up well. I think that's pretty clear. Like I think it's the end of the first episode where they both simultaneously, it's like a split screen, and they're like, "I am justice,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they the writing.
It's two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And then yeah, man, like the
The music's
music,
great. The
fucking
music's fantastic.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's one of the best soundtracks, one of the best scores I've ever
Yeah,
heard.
the music is fantastic. I think it's
Oh,
Hiroyuki Kawana, but I don't know if I don't. You don't quote me on that.
yeah. Yeah, it's so good, man. The music was amazing. Just the perfect combination of electronic music and then orchestral
Mhm.
score as
Mhm.
well. Like just great. But yeah, that's my thought. Those are my thoughts
Death
on
Note.
Death Note. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the best, one of the greatest shows I've ever watched for sure.
Yeah.
And then speaking of great shows, I guess the last thing I want to mention is the Fallout TV
That's
series.
right. You've been watching that, haven't you?
That is great. I haven't finished the first season yet. I'm still working my way through it, but I'm very slowly watching this because my dad and I will I'll FaceTime my family um, usually once a week, and then my dad and I will kind of watch it like in sync
Mhm.
um, over FaceTime. So we're like very slowly making our way through it.
Mhm.
I'm visiting home though for Mother's Day, so Mother's Day weekend. So
What is that
hopefully,
again?
not this weekend, but the next one.
Okay.
But but all that to say, yeah, the Fallout TV series it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
some good shit.
All right.
Uh, just from the characters to the plot to the world building. The world building is fantastic, but it's always in service of the story. It never feels like as George and Seinfeld would say, it's just masturbation. It never feels like that. It's
Yeah.
it's very it's great. Watch it. That's all. And
All
that's
right,
it.
dude. Well, everybody, it's that time for this episode. It's movie of the week time, the time that everybody's been waiting for. Um, movie of the week for this week is the 1974 American neo-noir mystery thriller film written, produced, and directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Gene Hackman, Joan Gazelle, and Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
It's The Conversation. What did you think, man?
Yeah. No, I liked it. I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Great neo noir film. Uh, yeah. Good stuff. I mean, I would say I'm gotta gather my thoughts here. Yeah, I mean, I would say like you had a really uh compelling plot there.
Hmm.
I'm a huge I'm very intrigued in, especially in film and TV, just in story in general, with the idea of surveillance. Like
Hmm.
some of my favorite scenes in like Better Call Saul, for instance, are the Mike surveillance scenes, whether he's spying on, Hector or Gus's men or whoever. Um, I love like spy versus spy kind of shit, or just surveillance, just eavesdropping. I love that stuff.
Hmm.
That stuff's fun to
Yeah.
me. So that was what kind of always piqued my interest about this film,
Hmm.
despite it sitting on my watch list for a while.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, and I thought that, yeah, I thought that there was a really solid, um, just dilemma in the story,
Yeah.
in terms of the main character, struggling with just the guilt. Like I totally got behind his guilt. He had a little Catholic guilt in there.
He
My
did. He
dare I
did.
say,
He did
a
have
little bit of Catholic guilt, man. But I totally bought into it, and I think that adding Catholicism on top of it sort of strengthened. I thought the idea of guilt, just giving him like a religious,
Mhm.
um, like a religious persuasion, I guess, which I feel like is something that is a little more rare nowadays. Um, but I thought it worked really well in this movie because, especially in Catholicism, like in Christianity, a lot of times not only is it sort of guilt, but there's an added sort of fear of damnation, right? If you feel like you fucked up.
Mhm.
So it added a weight to his guilt about, what turns out to be the fact that three people who he was surveilling were murdered, essentially,
Mhm.
which I thought was, you know, obviously, like, yeah, it's devastating. Um, I thought a scene that painted that really well, this whole idea of, oh, I just do the surveillance and then I wash my hands of whatever
Right.
happens
Right.
next.
Right.
I thought the scene that really did a great job of sort of where you knew it hit him, of like, this is wrong,
Mhm.
is when he delivers the tapes to Harrison Ford and the main client. I think, what was his name? The
The
director, I think
director.
was the character's name.
Mhm.
And the director says, "Money's over there on the table,"
Mhm.
and it's just kind of like this, and then the main character, what was the main character's name?
Cole, Henry Cole, Harry
Henry
Cole.
Cole. Harry Cole, that's
Yeah.
right. Harry goes over to the table and there's just stacks of money sitting out,
Mhm.
and it's just kind of like, there's your money,
Yeah.
and now you're done,
Right.
and it just felt like the money just looked so,
It
in that
did.
scene, just
Yeah. It was
dirty,
like the perfect
to me.
depiction of it. Of it just looking like something that you don't even want to touch. It's like, what is this? You know?
Yeah. And this is what classical filmmaking is all about. This is why people, drool over
These classic
these
films.
classic
Yeah.
films, because they did things, this it's part of what makes films classics, is they go that extra mile.
Right. There's so much thought process behind the
All
film.
right. Yeah, just in the interest of time. So everybody, I think my internet just went out or something at like the worst time. So we'll just finish up with me on my fucking phone again.
2 weeks in a row, man. I will be voted this year's best member of the Film Tangents podcast.
Uh, I'm gonna finish my point, and then I'll just let you go review the film, and we can finish up here.
Okay.
So the point that I was making about like the dollar bills on the table, I think that's why like great, um, like classical filmmaking like this is so revered, because it's like it's not just about like let's get some cool shots, right? Or like, oh, we have a great script here. It has all of that, but it's
Right,
also this idea of what can we do with the composition
right,
of the film, and put in the frame that's going to inform the story and get the audience to feel a certain way
hmm,
that will in turn get them more invested in the story that we're telling, and
right.
that's like real magic of filmmaking. That's the real art to it. That I feel like has definitely, it's dying a little bit, especially in terms of, at least in terms of the mainstream film, in terms of mainstream stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if it really is dying, but I don't want to be an old head about film because I'm not an old head, but yeah, I think that's what makes. I'll say this. I think that's what makes directors like Coppola and Scorsese, like so great, is stuff like that. But give us your take on the movie.
Well, like I said before, I've seen this movie before, and I was really eager to at least put my eyes on it again, in the sense that I always found this like really fascinating, really topical. This idea of like paranoia, and this idea of like everybody's, spying on everybody, everybody's listening to everybody, we're fucking hearing everything you have to say, like nobody has any fucking privacy. Like that to me, I always found fascinating, especially when you take this character, that's what he does for a living. He's violating other people's privacy. He's like this private, investigator, like recording guy. And like you said earlier, like I found that fascinating, that angle of the film of having him find out within the recording that the recording itself is putting people's lives at jeopardy, and having that moral like dilemma, especially because he's like haunted, because seemingly something happened in this guy's past, where in the past he did a job that resulted in people's death before, and he's just like haunted by that the guilt. And like you said, he constantly is being like, it's not my fault, like he's trying to detach himself from it, just being like, this is the job that I do. But it's like, well, the job that you do has real consequences. It just hasn't had like a direct effect on you outside of your moral compass, and like the guilt that you're feeling for having caused these things. Which is fascinating, because I also think this is one of the greatest movie endings of all time. The how it just turns it around and it just kind of flips it on his head. What is happening with this character? Where he's at his house. He's like, okay, this is my comfort zone. I'm gonna take out my saxophone, and then the phone rings. Then the phone rings again. And Harrison Ford is like, we're on to you. Like, don't you try and think that you're gonna be smart, or be clever, because we know you know information, so you're not gonna say anything to anybody. We're listening in on you. Which is interesting. Like when he went to that convention with all those other guys, all those like other like voyeur like spy guys, you know, which just showed you like how vulnerable everybody is, including this guy. When he got that, when the guy put that pen on him, and then that turned out to be like a recording device, and it's like, oh, that guy was listening in on your conversation, and it's just this idea of vulnerability and lack of privacy, and he's like somebody who's like obsessed with having privacy to the point that it like, gets in between his personal connections and interactions with people. So just seeing this guy be in his own personal hell by the end of this film, where he had to destroy like the like like that religious figure that he had, in order to be like, like where is the device? How are they spying on me? It was fascinating. Again, one of the greatest like last shots of a film ever. And this film benefits by the fact that it doesn't have a title sequence; it just happens within the frame, and then it just shows you this guy just destroyed his whole life, his whole apartment, just because he's like, where, like because he craves, he just wants privacy, but he works in a way, he works, taking away from other people, and like, oh, now it's been taken away from you, and it's very upsetting feeling, feeling like that, like you have no privacy, but he's listening in on you. Um, I found it fascinating. I love the
Very
themes. Say what?
fitting
Yeah,
for
exactly,
sure.
exactly. Very fitting. I love the themes of the film. Coppola went on a fascinating run, because for Francis Ford Coppola, this has all happened in the 70s. He made The Godfather. He followed The Godfather with The Conversation in 74. In 74, also, The Godfather Part 2 came out. So he had those two films come out at the same year. And then in 79, Apocalypse Now came out. So the 70s, he owned the 70s. I mean, dude, four of the greatest films of all time released in one decade by one filmmaker. He was at his peak. I love Gene Hackman. I thought he was great in this movie. I love John Gazelle, who played like the assistant, like the helper that he had. Um, and Harrison Ford, this was his second movie role ever. Before this, he was in American Graffiti, and after this, he was in Star Wars. Dude, very
Right. He was
fascinating.
a villain, dude. He was a great
Yeah.
villain. Under,
Um,
underrated. You wouldn't think of him as a villain
right.
usually, but he's pretty good as one in this movie.
And then I love the twist of it being that, at the end, the director was the one who died, and the couple, like, orchestrated his murder, and that was fascinating. That was a nice twist to what you were expecting, which is just like, oh, that the director's gonna kill the couple, and Gene Hackman's gonna be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So
Great twist. I did not see that twist coming, dude.
yeah.
Like, because the whole plot is just one giant red herring,
Hmm.
and you're thinking so much about the not only the possibility of what you think is going to happen, but all which is the director killing
The
his
couple.
wife or lover,
Yeah.
but also um, you know just the moral implications of it and the guilt that Gene Hackman's going to feel. You're not even thinking about the possibility of
Hmm.
of like anything else. So
Hmm.
you're dreading it. You're dreading that with him the whole
Hmm.
movie. It serves as like one of the biggest red herrings I've ever
Hmm.
seen.
Hmm. Then she's just alive. Yeah.
I completely
Yeah.
just blindsided by that twist.
Yeah.
It wasn't even in my mind.
Yeah, and it's fascinating too. Like, because even in watching this, like when he flushes the toilet and the blood comes out, to this day, I think that's just kind of like his imagination. I was like, this is kind of like a dream sequence. Because
Yeah,
again, he's just like haunted by all these like images and all these thoughts. Like again, he was guilty of this happening in the past. Um, and I think that ultimately the message too is just like, no, you're not disconnected from the consequences of your actions. Like you're directly tied to them, and that's why at the end of the movie it's like literally this is this guy's own personal hell, because he was unable to do the right thing in this whole situation, and it cost someone's life because of him, because he's doing this very moral job, and then it literally cost him everything. I find this movie very fascinating, just like this like niche little movie about this weird concept, this neo-noir in between Godfather movies that he just pushed out and directed and wrote himself. I find it so fascinating. Um, the camera techniques here of just like this like long fucking like these wide shots that become close-ups very slowly, or close-ups that become wide shots, which everything just ties into the theme of like voyeurism and spying on people. um I think this movie's operating at a level like of just masterclass filmmaking in every sense, like in terms of both craft narratively, like written narratively, the acting performances by everybody, and like Francis Ford Coppola's directing, like visual direction. I think everything is just like masterclass. Yeah, I don't have any complaints about this movie. I love this movie. I think it's great. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'll say too, just on a micro level, like the scene where I knew the second that guy put at the convention,
The
the
pen.
second he
Yeah.
put a pen
Yeah.
in his
Oh yeah.
pocket,
Yeah.
I thought Harry was gonna like immediately
Take it
toss
off.
that
Yeah. He kept
how
it. Yeah.
paranoid he was, but I couldn't believe he didn't spot that.
Yeah.
But then by the time they revealed that they had been recording that conversation, I had forgotten about the pen.
Yeah, I forgot
So
about
it
it.
was
I forgot about it too, which is fascinating too, because it also shows you like what that scene shows you, like even when he had a moment of vulnerability in the movie, he was punished. Which like shows you why he's so paranoid and he's constantly like so
yeah.
detached. It's so fascinating.
That
Um,
was the scene too where he was talking to that woman and
mm,
basically from what I gathered there, like he still loved like his ex-wife or
mhm,
something.
mhm.
And that was a great, just phenomenal way to communicate that.
Right.
Again, exposition. That's one of the great troubles of writers. How do we communicate exposition naturally?
Yeah.
And that was one of the uh, uh, that was up there with one of the best scenes one of the best examples of delivering exposition really well
Hmm.
that I can think of.
Hmm.
That was great. But yeah, what would you rate this movie, sir?
I gave this movie an 8 when I first saw it, which, and interestingly, just another thing to point out. Again, Francis Ford Coppola might have had one of the greatest years as a director ever. Like in '74, again, the conversation with The Godfather 2 came out. For this movie, he was nominated for a Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Sound just for this movie. And he won the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival, like in '74, for this movie. I mean, dude, I mean, you cannot be more proud of yourself. Like, if you have a year like this as a creative, as a filmmaker, I mean, this is incredible. Um, and
Crazy.
and then obviously, then The Godfather won what this didn't win. The Godfather won Best Picture, Best Director, won Best Supporting Actor for De Niro. I mean, again, like what he destroyed the Oscars, and then he won the best like artistic achievement prize you can win as a filmmaker. He won the fucking Palme d'Or at Cannes. Um, I'm gonna give this a 9. I gave it an 8 the first time. I always wanted to visit this movie again because I always thought it was better than just like my average rating for a great film. Yeah, 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8.
Yeah.
Really the only issues I had with the movie were I don't know, I just felt like it dragged at certain points.
Hmm.
I
I
thought
feel
it
that.
was I thought it was going to be a little more like cat and mouse, which
Hmm.
seems to sort of be the promise of the movie.
Yeah.
Uh, which maybe is just me reading into it a little too much because from my expectations of movies like this, but which there were cat and mouse elements of it for sure, but
Hmm.
like around the convention and the warehouse party scenes,
Hmm.
like that sequence just I
Lost you a
started to
little
get
bit. I get that.
yeah, well, I started to get just a little bored, I guess.
Hmm.
But just a tiny bit. Other than that, it's like a real minor complaint.
Yeah.
It honestly, that's just me trying to find something wrong
Yeah.
because it's really well made.
Yeah, no, it's such a well-made movie. You can't fault that movie. Like in terms of just the craft, it's so I mean, it's kind of awe-inspiring in that sense.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And yeah, I love the neo noir genre as well. So,
Yeah.
and noir and neo noir, both. Like, I love that genre. So, um, yeah, it's funny how everything after like the '50s is just neo noir.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Can we just call it all noir? I don't
Noir.
know.
Yeah.
It's all the anyway. Yeah, so I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Great movie.
So that being said, sir, um, what are we watching next week?
Well, sir, after a couple weeks of, we had 2 weeks in a row where the movie was from 1974, which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But after 2 weeks in a row of very just sort of
It's like wanking.
artful, serious kind of films.
Yeah. Are we gonna watch The Water Boy?
No, not quite. But we're going to not only jump forward to the present day, but
Uh-huh.
we're also going to move away from the sort of seriousness and the somber nature of the past couple films.
Mhm.
We're going to watch the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Wow.
So we're going to have a little fun next week, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow. On Netflix, right?
It's on that. I believe so. Yeah.
Dude, that sounds like a blast. I'm excited for that. That sounds
Yeah.
fun as heck.
Yep.
That's been on my watch list. I've meant to watch that movie.
Yeah, same here. I've been meaning to watch it for a while, but
Mhm.
it never feels like the right time. So we're just gonna do it next week, and we had the champagne in the studio, and we just
We
went
just
in there and did
did
it.
it. We just went in there and did it.
Only real music gonna last.
All that other bullshit is here today and gone tomorrow.
Oh, but
All right,
yeah.
everybody.
Why don't you play us out, man? Since I sound like shit probably at this point.
So what? To play us out? What does that mean? To end the show?
Yeah, yeah.
To end the show? Everybody, good night. See you next time. Next time on Film Tangents. We're out.
See ya.